Okay, you guys, another Ignite presentation. This one is 20 slides. Once again, I'm not going to automatically advance it this time because I want to kind of page through some things with y'all. But this one is about NFTs and a little bit about me before we get started. There's the house I grew up in. Um, 5 children, 2 parents. So that made us 7 sons. And I went to Eastern High School. I don't think the Eagle was up here at the top of the high school back then, but this is the high school I went to in Middletown, Kentucky. And I remember the cut through going to the high school, so I looked up on Google Maps the cut through, and here it is here on Google Maps. Do you see it? Like if you're walking to school, do you see it? It's right over here. We would cut through this little area right here to go to school with. You might check out Google Maps sometime and kind of walk your old neighborhood or walk around someplace like Hawaii or somewhere that you'd like to visit. And I just really encourage you to check out Google Maps. Street View. Okay, so what is an NFT? NFT stands for non-fungible token, and a video of LeBron James dunking a basketball recently sold for $200,000 as an NFT. And it's like, well, I can pull that up on YouTube and watch it anytime I want. How come? Why would somebody pay $200,000 for it? And the answer is because that person now owns it. And you might say, well, I own it too. But, you have to think about ownership, what exactly that means. Think of the rights, having the rights to it. So what is fungible? Fungible means that it can be exchanged. So for instance, the greatest fungible example would be dollar bills, where you could exchange a $10 note for 10 $1 bills or two $5 bills. It's all the same. Corn grade 2. Now, not all corn is fungible because you might say, well, I don't want corn from this particular farmer. His corn is grade 3 or, grade 1 or whatever. But if it's all, grade 2 versus grade 2, it's all been graded, then you could exchange one person's corn for another. And you could say, that's fine, this corn, as long as I get 10 tons of corn, it's fine. Grade 2 corn, that is. So what is a token? A token in these digital days where everything is digital, a token is a username and password on the ledger. And I'll explain what the ledger is in a moment. But for instance, when I talk about the ledger, I've talked in class, I talk about the Bitcoin pizza transaction. Here's the Bitcoin pizza transaction here where Laszlo sent 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas back in 2010, in May of 2010. So that's why May 22nd of every year is known as Bitcoin Pizza Day, because of this transaction where Laszlo paid 10,000 Bitcoin. Let's see how much it's worth today. If I click on this, it'll convert it to dollars. And that's worth $585 million today. But don't feel sorry for Laszlo. He's got more Bitcoin after that. So what's the password? Well, if that were the password, that would be great, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you love to know what the password is to that transaction? But, that's just a random set of numbers. But here's an example of what a username and password would be with non-fungible tokens. And as long as you remember your password, you'll be fine. And how do you remember it? You write it down. So what is a token? It's a username and password. And by password, I mean an account number. I'm sorry. And by username, I mean an account number. And what do I mean by password? It's a password that was given to you. You don't just make up a password like, Lenore Rhyme or something like that. It's the password that was generated and handed to you. There are multiple currencies. So in the world produced by governments, The difference is that with blockchain currencies or cryptocurrencies, they're produced by individuals or companies, and governments usually back their currencies with tanks and airplanes, and cryptocurrencies are not backed by anything. So uh, there are literally thousands upon thousands of cryptocurrencies. But I want you to think about ownership, and if you could play this video starting at the 31-minute mark, and you'll see the video. I can't play it because I would get a copyright strike. But it really struck me when I watched this that Michael Jackson, although he owned everything, he owned the things that were in this video, he hadn't taken possession of them yet. In other words, they were still in the store waiting for somebody, one of his employees, to come and take them out of the store. And I don't know how long they stayed in the store. Who knows? They could have stayed in there, for many weeks and months. But he owned them, even though they physically resided in the store where they were being sold. So ownership doesn't necessarily mean possession, and that definitely comes into effect when it comes to burglary, right? If someone burgles your house, they take possession of some jewelry or something like that, but you own it still. You're the owner of that jewelry. And so the question will be, well, how can you prove that you're the owner? Is there any way that you can show that jewelry is yours? And the answer, of course, is, well, do you have some sort of a receipt saying that you bought it? Do you have some sort of a way of showing that you are the owner? These days we have certificates of authenticity, especially with collectible items, with baseball cards, basketball cards. You buy a jersey from the Lakers, and it's said that this was worn by LeBron James, and so you say, really? Is there some sort of certificate of authenticity that this was worn by him in a certain game? And usually that comes in the form of a piece of paper, right? But everything is digital these days. Everything's online these days. So blockchain solves the problem of provenance. Provenance to collectors is where you show the chronology of ownership. Do you own a Vermeer or do you own a Van Meegeren? Van Meegeren was a famous Vermeer forger. And it doesn't matter which one you think looks better. the thing that matters is this a Vermeer or is this a forgery? So what is blockchain? So blockchain is a list of transactions. So here we have 2 blocks of transactions. The first column is the first block of transactions. The last number here is a calculation based on this first column, and just for the sake of teaching, I thought I would just use the simplest of all calculations. It would be just the sum of the column, but in reality it's much more complicated than that. The first transaction of the second block is a copy of the last transaction from the first block. The last transaction of the second block, of course, is another very complicated calculation. So the thing that I wanted to show you is, let's see if I can, here I have an example of it here. If I were to change one number in the blockchain, I'll change this to a 12, you'll see that it changes all of the numbers. Basically, it changes not only the ending calculation, which would change the beginning calculation of the next block, which would change the ending calculation of every single block thereafter. And so this is what is one layer of security when it comes to the blockchain, in that once something is recorded, it stays that way forever. It can't be gone back and changed. Otherwise, it would change like every transaction following. Another layer of security is that these transactions are all housed on thousands upon thousands hundreds of thousands, dare I say millions of computers around the world. So here's one Bitcoin server looks like that, and then a server farm looks like that right there. And there are hundreds of server farms around the world. You know, I tried to get a reasonable estimation of server farms, and it's kind of hard to convey how many server farms there are, but there are a copy of the ledger, of the Bitcoin ledger, blockchain ledger, is kept on hundreds of thousands of servers around the world. So it wouldn't be good enough to change a number on a transaction on a server. You would have to change every single transaction on every single server, you know, that which is next to impossible to do until someone figures out how to do it, I guess. So, where are these servers? I thought this was interesting. If you just click on where are their server farms, then one of the top answers is in Maiden, North Carolina. There's an Apple server farm in just about 10 miles south of us. And also, another search revealed that there's a Google server farm in Lenoir, North Carolina, about 10 miles north of us. So who determines the value of something? If you play this, this is a video clip where someone brought in a leaf from the Gutenberg Bible into the Pawn Stars television show, and here's a picture of it right here. And he was asking, I think he was asking $65,000 for this leaf, two pages of the Bible, Gutenberg Bible, that is. And so it's interesting to see how they derive a valuation for what he brought in. But what about a JPEG? How much is a JPEG worth if everybody can make a copy of it? Well, think about it, because anybody can make a copy of the Gutenberg Bible as well. It's just that you don't hold the original Gutenberg Bible in your hands. You would be holding a copy of it in your hand, which would have some value, but not very much value. And an NFT is the same thing. Who would be considered the true owner? And so remember back when I talked about the robber that says to you, says who owns this? And in the future, it will be the blockchain is who says who, or who owns what. Blockchain is going to transform how we keep record keeping in terms of deeds of land, the sale of collectibles, the sale of property, where you graduated from. It's going to keep track of everything in terms of the provenance. And I'm done with my presentation, but I can't close out of it now.